Job had given his great speech in Job 3 when he wished the universe would unmake itself because he hurt that bad, deciding to team up with Leviathan and wanting the chaos monster to undo creation. And then Eliphaz responded, you will recall, with a speech implying that Job should trust in his integrity and that if he truly was innocent, that God would remember. Well, after each friend's speech, Job gets to respond. And so we're going to pick up tonight with Job's response to Eliphaz's speech last week. Job answered, "Oh, that my vexation were weighed and all my calamity laid in the balances, for then it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words have been rash. For the arrows of the Almighty are in me, that my spirit drinks their poison. The terrors of God are arrayed against me." So already he's again, his suffering is the weight of creation, as Job 3 says. And that's the reason his words have offended Eliphaz. He acknowledges that, that my suffering is so bad, that's why it sounds that way. But God is shot poison arrows that are sitting in me, and that's why I'm talking. That's why I'm talking like that. He goes on to say, "Oh, that I might have my request, and that God would grant my desire, that it would please God to crush me, and that he would let loose his hand and cut me off." Basically, why isn't God just going to kill me? Why do I have to keep suffering like this? This would be my consolation. I would even exult in unrelenting pain, for I have not denied the words of the Holy One. What is my strength that I should wait? What is my end that I should be patient? And it's like, what's the hope that I have? What's the end game here? I've lost everything that I have, and now I'm ill. What is gained by enduring this suffering? I wish God would grant my request and have ended it. And he's not going to commit suicide. There's no euthanasia entertained here, because that would be wrong in his mind to take his own life like that. So he's saying, why doesn't God just go ahead and kill me? Then I can die in my integrity, and I know I'm right. The world doesn't make sense, but at least I know I'm right, and I don't have to keep suffering like this. Those who withhold kindness from a friend forsake the fear of the Almighty. My companions are treacherous, like a torrent bed. That's what he's talking about his friends now. Like freshets that pass away. A freshet, it is not, actually. It is that's false cognate. That is like a wadi. It's a stream that comes from heavy rain or melted snow, and then once the sun comes out, they're gone. And so my friends are like freshets that pass away. They're really big and really loud when they're here, but when the sun comes out, they run dark with ice, turbid with melting snow. In the time of heat, they disappear. When it's hot, they vanish from their place. Their caravans turn aside from their course. They go into the waste and perish. They're disappointed because they were confident. I love him calling out the sort of hypocrisy of his friends. They come there and are confounded. Such you have now become to me. You see my calamity and are afraid. Have I said, make me a gift, or from your wealth offer a bribe for me, or save me from my opponent's hand, or ransom me from the hand of my oppressors? Teach me, and I will be silent. Make me understand how I've gone wrong. How forceful are honest words. But your reproof, what does it reprove? You think you can reprove words as if the speech of the desperate were wind? You would even cast lots over the orphan and bargain over your friend. So, bars. Basically calling them out for their empty words. That it's not, you can't just correct my speech. This speech is coming from something more real than just wind, if you will. And tell me, I haven't asked you for any money. I'm not presuming upon you. And try and tell me where I'm wrong. This is where the Kebmo song, Am I Wrong, would kick in the soundtrack, I think, at this point. Am I wrong? No, he's not. Job seems to always get 2 chapters to respond to his friend's 1 chapter rebuke. So the friend speaks for about a chapter. Eliphaz spoke for 2, but then Job usually takes 2 to respond to 1 of theirs. I guess he's on a roll, so you let him go. This is Job speaking. Remember, my life is a breath. My eye will never again see good. The eye that beholds me will see me no more. While your eyes are upon me, I shall be gone. As the cloud fades and vanishes, so those who go down to Sheol do not come up. They return no more to their houses, nor do the places know them anymore. Therefore, I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Look, I'm about to die, so I'm going to have my say. And you're not going to see me anymore. And so since I'm on my way out, I've got some stuff you need to know. He goes on to speak to God now. This is Job. He's turned from his friends and now he's sort of addressing God, not exactly directly. We get that a little bit later. We get sort of an abstract address here. What are human beings that you make so much of them? Which sounds an awful lot like a psalm that we know, doesn't it? Which very well, I think it's very likely that psalm was written by the time this text is put down to paper. What are human beings that you make so much of them, that you set your mind on them, visit them every morning, test them every moment? Will you not look away from me for a while? Let me alone until I swallow my spittle. This is when I said in Job 3, Job said, would you shut up, God? Stop talking to me about this. That's basically what Job says to God. You shut up and give me a minute, please. So yeah, why don't you leave me alone? If I sin, what do I do to you, you watcher of humanity? Why have you made me your target? Why have I become a burden to you? Why do you not pardon my transgression, take away my iniquity? For now I shall lie in the earth. Give me just a minute, please. Why should you care about the tiny? This is interesting because he kind of develops this argument in a little bit. Human beings are so insignificant. Why should I bear the brunt of your attack? And then he comes back and say, because he's so insignificant, he's not even going to be able to make an argument to God. We'll see that in just a second. So this was his response to Eliphaz. Bildad can't take it. Bildad doesn't like these irreverent things that Job is saying. So Bildad the Shuhite answered, how long will you say these things and the words of your mouth be a great wind? He's basically refuting directly what Job said. Remember, Job said, do you think the words of the suffering are wind that can be reproved easily? And Bildad says, yes, basically, your words are wind and need to be rebuked. Also, it would be remiss of me not to point out, he opens with Ad Matai, how long? Yeah, he's lamenting this attitude. This comes off accusatory, and it certainly is, but it's a lament formula of accusation here. And I think that's worth remembering, that he's sorry that his friend is saying these things. He's kind of disappointed, maybe. He's not angry. He's just disappointed. And here we get some of these great questions. Bildad the Shuhite says, in verse 3, does God pervert justice, or does the Almighty pervert the right? This comes back to me to one of the most brilliant parts about the book of Job. The friends make sense. Does God pervert justice? Well, no, right? That's what we want to say. God, no, of course God doesn't pervert justice. Of course God doesn't pervert what's right. And then he goes on, and he does make some assumptions that we know are wrong. Verse 4, this is if, probably better translated when. I'll say, when your children sinned against him, he delivered them into the power of their transgression. That's where I said he's speaking what we know. We know that his children did not die because they were sinful. His children died because they were part of this test against Job. Now, that's not a great situation if you're the children, but I'm saying that in this honor-shame society where children are considered a reflection on the father, to bring honor or shame, if you will, that he is presuming that his children sinned, and that's why they were punished. But we know that's not the case. If you will seek God, or when you will seek God and make supplication to the Almighty, if you are pure and upright, surely he will rouse himself to you and restore you to your rightful place. Though your beginning was small, your latter days will be great. If you're really innocent, God will fix it. I would argue that God did it. I would not argue God allowed this to happen. In the book of Job, God did it. This is one of the sticking points if you're trying to harmonize that theology with the rest of theology other places. But Job says God did it. And at the end, God acknowledges God did it. Hasatan does not figure into this at all. The whole sort of theological gymnastics that people do sometimes to say, well, God doesn't, cause this. God allows Satan to do this for blah, 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 blah. That is not the way in which the book of Job tells the story. The book of Job
But it did at the beginning.
Hasatan works for God.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
There you go.
Hasatan is an employee and is upset that in his annual review, he's going to be marked down because he's not doing his job. And his point is, I can't do my job. Job does not make any distinction. The friends don't make any distinction. It is God. Well, the friends' point is that Job sinned, and that's why God did it. Job's point is, I know I didn't sin, so why did God do it? But nobody believes God didn't do it. Maybe that helps.
And does it matter?
And does it matter? I mean, it matters in how you read the book of Job. I mean, this is an issue, right? I mean, comes back to the brilliance, as I said, the brilliance of the book of Job is that the theology of it is the theology of the book of Job is one that will push you. It is insightful, but it is challenging on a level that it makes some people very uncomfortable. And not just because, I mean, everybody, I think, wrestles with the question of why do bad things happen? I mean, that is the number one question people want answered. They've been trying to answer this for years. Well, all the way back to the Babylonian theodicy that we talked about at the beginning. It's one that's always been asked. And it's not one that I'm going to answer a whole night. I mean, obviously the issue of theodicy, we could spend a class on, and I've taught that class and we can certainly talk about it.
Can you
but
maybe explain what theodicy is?
Well, we talked about it a few weeks ago, you'll recall. Theodicy is trying to reconcile at its most basic, trying to reconcile God is all good, God is all powerful, evil exists. You can have any two of those, but having all three is a logical contradiction. And so theodicy is how you make the argument for how you have all three in the world. And you have to modify one or the other. And usually you don't let go of God is all good. Usually you have theodicies that modify evil exists and theodicies that modify God's power. Mm-hmm. But this is one of those times when I like to try and let the text speak. And this is very much what sort of the perspective of the book of Job is, that it is God who is acting, and it is God who is trying to answer the question of Job's faithfulness. And God is not in the picture after chapter 2. And so we don't know God's response to any of this. And Job sort of has this foundational belief, and we'll see it come up several times, where he says, I am innocent. I do not merit what has happened to me. Job says that a lot of different ways in a lot of different places. And we, the readers who have gone back from the very beginning, who've read from chapter 1, verse 1, know that there was a man in the land of Uz, and Job was his name, and he was blameless and upright and feared God and turned away from evil. So we know that Job is right, and that none of this makes sense. And that the friends, although they make a good argument, are wrong, because they're proceeding from the assumption that Job is being punished for sin or corrected in a belief that needs to be fixed. And we know that's not the case. So this is one of those I think we're going to have to hold on to as we move through, because it is, I think when we get to the end, when you see where the book of Job comes out, well, I'm going to say, I don't know that it helps or not. I think it helps when you ride to the end of it. Would I consider Job's comments a prayer? I would consider, I would consider Job's comments an honest reflection of who Job is. We do get a moment later in the book of Job where Job is intentionally and directly addressing God. I can say, I think. When we get there, we'll parse that out. Most of this, I think, is, what was it that I called it last week? Lament monologue. That this is an earnest confession of the heart. Some of this will sound sort of prayerful. I mean, this is obviously Zophar, not Zophar. I'm sorry. This is Bildad, but Job's speeches. At this point, I think he's still trying to address the friends. I don't think I can call it prayer at this point. Bildad is. And we get to verse 8 where he says, "For inquire now of bygone generations and consider what their ancestors have found. For we are but of yesterday and we know nothing. For our days on earth are but a shadow. Will they not teach you and tell you and utter words out of their understanding?" So remember that Eliphaz was a mystic, right? Eliphaz heard the spirits passing in the night that gave him wisdom and understanding and truth. Bildad is the historian. Bildad relies on what the lessons of tradition and these people from bygone generations have taught and learned. So he's appealing to a different authority source to basically say the same thing, Job. Hang in there. You've sinned. God is testing you. Mm-hmm.
Bob Wallace, but in chapter 1, verse 12 says, "God to Satan, everything he has is in your hands." This seems like Satan is taking some action, doesn't it?
That's what I was thinking.
In Job 1, yeah, that everything he has is, yeah. Satan is taking action at the direction of God. Again, I mean, this is one of those where Hasatan is an employee of the divine in the book of Job. And so it's when Gabriel says to Mary, "Behold, you will conceive with child," we say that message is from God. We don't say that's Gabriel who did that. And so this is a place where, again, how you read Hasatan is important in chapter 1 because it affects the way you read the rest of the book. Job does not believe there is anyone responsible for suffering apart from God. God owns it at the end that God did what God did. And even God owns it in chapter 2 when he condemns Hasatan and says, "You incited me against him for no reason." So he owns that he did it. You incited me against him for no reason. So that is an internal matter to God at that point. So yes, I mean, again, all the way through, Job blames God, and at the end, God owns it. That causes no one in the book of Job problems. It causes us problems in the reading of it, I think. Well, it's a cultural distance between us, and that's one of the problems. The cultural distance between us, because, for example, we think of the natural world as we choke on the fumes of modernism, right? We don't blame God for floods. We don't blame God for snow. We blame God. I mean, that's the weather. That's natural law. That's a we take sometimes a very deistic approach when we do that, but it's not. I mean, we can conceive of a world in which things which we can't explain or things which we can't explain are not attributed to the divine. They could not. Everything comes from the hand of God. This is why the Bible, I won't say struggles, but this is why the Bible's narrative of the flood story is so challenging for the Bible, because in a polytheistic culture, you can have the mean God who wants to kill everyone and the nice God who wants to save people. When you're a monotheist, it's problematic because there's only one God, but you know that the flood existed. So how do you tell that story? Bible has to tell that story. You can't leave that story out. How do you tell that story? Well, it's not about mean. It's about humanity's sin. It's about disappointment. It's about regret. And it's about a God who is going to commit to stay with humanity for the rest of time. That is the way that story would have been heard to that audience. We, looking back, can read that as, I mean, the God, even the God of the Bible, from our perspective, if you're not aware of what's going on with those other flood stories in the other culture, can look at Genesis 6-9 and read a very angry, very mean God who nearly commits genocide. And that's not the message of the text at all. That is our struggle because of the cultural distance we have from the text. God says Job is right for assigning blame to God in the book of Job. So I'm going to take God's side here and say yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to spoil the ending on this, but that is one of the.
Well, the book's been out.
The book's been out for a while. If you haven't read it, yeah. The end of one of the two most controversial things I can not spoil the other thing, but one of the two most controversial things, brilliant things about the book of Job is where God says to the friends, "You have not spoken of me what is right, like my servant Job has. The story on some level is about justice, and Job's upset that it's unjust. So I would argue it is kind of about justice. Job is saying this isn't just. We are going to see this at the end. Yes.
The justice doesn't come in right now.
Yeah, we don't. The universe is unbalanced right now, and we're going to see that because it doesn't make sense. The Job. That's one of the things Job is so angry about. Point to a reason. Make this make sense. And I'm fine. I'm cool. But Job knows he's innocent. He knows he doesn't deserve this. You see why I love this book, right? I mean, you can see why I love this book. It's a brilliant book.
It's frustrating.
Yes, it is frustrating. It defies easy explanation, which the universe doesn't care about what's just, but God does. But you can't blame the universe here. God is the universe here. Not God is the universe. God is the only controlling force in the universe. There's no strong and weak nuclear force or gravity or electromagnetism. We don't have any of that. God is the only force in the universe, and everything that happens can be attributed to God, except what God has bestowed upon humanity to do. This is obviously Bildad still talking. Such are the paths of all who forget God. The hope of the godless shall perish. Their confidence is gossamer. A spider's house is their trust. So, I mean, Job has showed great confidence up to this point, and he's saying, "You're not. You're leaning on a spider's web." The wicked thrive before the sun, and their shoots spread all over the garden, and then they get destroyed. See, God will not reject a blameless person, nor take the hand of evildoers. He will yet fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with shouts of joy. Those who hate you will be clothed with shame, and the tent of the wicked will be no more. If you're really blameless, you have nothing to fear. Job and his friends have an understanding of God that has an understanding of the universe and God's role in it that does not reflect our understanding of God and the role in the universe as we now come to understand it in our culture. I wouldn't say it's about right or wrong. It's about the way this is the way our culture thinks about it. And God, as the best improvisational jazz musician in the world, lets us set the key and makes the music with it, right? So this is the culture the people are in. This is where God meeting them where they are in their culture is expressing the truth he can to that culture. Now we have our understanding in our culture, and God expresses that truth in our culture in that way. Same message that we know fulfilled in the person of Christ. It's going to be heard differently. And when we try to read that without a sense of where they were, that's when we run into trouble. It's the danger of the Pentecost miracle, as it always is. Bildad yells at Job. It's like we're running alongside the text as we read this. Job answers. I love this answer from Job. Job answered, "Indeed, I know this is so." I do love him starting out with, "Yes, I went to the same class that you did. How can a mortal be just before God? If one wished to contend with him, one could not answer him once in 1,000." So it's funny because he kind of like takes Zophar's point and what's that? Excuse me, Bildad's point and twists it, because he's like, basically, the innocent man can stand before God. He's like, yeah, I know, but how can the innocent man stand before God? Because you're not going to win once in 1,000. He's wise in heart. He's mighty in strength. Who has resisted God and succeeded? Who removes mountains and they don't know it when it overturns them in his anger? Who shakes the earth out of its place and the pillars tremble? Who commands the sun and it doesn't rise? Who seals up the stars? Who alone stretched out the heavens? Who trampled the waves of the sea? Who made the bear and the Orion and the Pleiades and the chambers of the south? Who does great things beyond understanding, marvelous things without number? Look, he passes by me, I do not see him. He moves on, but I don't perceive him. He snatches away. Who can stop him? Who will say to him, what are you doing? God will not turn back his anger. The helpers of Rahab bowed beneath him. This would be Rahab, the giant chaos sea monster, the other name for Leviathan that I mentioned. So he's acknowledging that chaos bows to him. He just wishes chaos would come back. How then can I answer him? Right? If all of those things are true, and he confesses these things about God are true, how can I answer him? Choosing my words with him. Though I am innocent, I cannot answer him. I must appeal for mercy to my accuser. And by the way, this accuser is not Hasatan accuser. This word in Hebrew is mishpat, the one who judges me, if you will. If I summoned him and he answered me, I do not believe he would listen to my voice. He crushes me with a tempest and multiplies my wounds without cause. He will not let me get my breath, but fills me with bitterness. If it's a contest of strength, he's the strong one. If it's a matter of justice, who can summon him? Though I'm innocent, my own mouth would condemn me. Though I'm blameless, he'd prove me perverse. If I'm blameless, I do not know myself. I loathe my life. It's all one, therefore, I say, he destroys both the blameless and the wicked when disaster brings sudden death. He mocks at the calamity of the innocent. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covers the eyes of its judges. And if it's not he, who then is it? So Job comes to a logical conclusion. I know I'm innocent, and I know I am suffering and being crushed. Therefore, God crushes the innocent. That's where Job is right now, expressing his honest frustration and his pain. I do love that he believes in God. This is not an atheism. He hasn't turned his back. He acknowledges very orthodox things about God, but he comes to an inescapable conclusion that the world's not fair. And God seems to be participating in that unfairness. It's the only conclusion he can draw. You can't stop the book of Job in the middle. I know we are stopping the book of Job in the middle, but you can't draw conclusions based on this. Remember, the canon is self-correcting. We've got to read it all. This is where Job is. This is where Job stays, really, in a lot of ways. He does seem to sort of cycle between confidence and despair. The confession at the beginning, though, seems to be a confession. It's a confidence in who God is, but it's also a frustration about that too. I mean, his frustration being that I can't make my point. It's unbalanced. God is bigger than I am, and it's like suing Walmart. He comes to the end here, and this is really a great point. For he is not immortal, as I am, that I might answer him, that we should come to trial together. There's no umpire between us who might lay a hand on us both. The umpire translation is a judge. He's not a baseball umpire. Well, I mean, the translation works on some level. It is someone you would meet the judge in the gate, and someone who could stand in between and hear both parties' case and render a judgment. His point is, I got to make my case to God directly. I can't make my case to God directly. I need an umpire to put a hand between both of us and make that point. Mm-hmm. He doesn't stop believing in God, but he's pretty mad at him and pretty frustrated. And early on, remember in chapter 6, we read tonight, why doesn't God just kill me? What's the point of this? What's my end game here? What's the end game of my patience and I'm blameless, and really, he's wrestling with that whole Deuteronomic theology, right? That obedience brings blessing, disobedience brings punishment. If I'm obedient, what's the end game? Because I've been obedient and now I'm suffering. Mm-hmm. Do the speeches of Job build on one another? Not exactly. I do think that you do have a sense in which the speeches of Job, at least initially, are kind of responding to what the person says. There's some vocab overlaps, and there does seem to be some topical overlaps. Job, though, I don't know that Job changes his position all that much. The position he has right here this is chapter 9, is exactly the same position he has in chapter 31. And it's the same position he expounded in chapter 6. I'm innocent, right? I'm blameless. So he seems to sort of fundamentally have this concern. I am innocent. This is not happening because of anything that I have done, which we all know is the case. And I wish I could tell God about that, but God's too big for me to answer. What ends up happening, the only building or change I would see is that by chapter 31, he is so tired of it, he is so frustrated by it, that he no longer is intimidated to go before God. In this chapter, he's like, I can't make my point. There's no way I could ever make my point. If I try to make my point, God's going to overwhelm me and I'll never be able to make my point. He seems to get over that. And in chapter 31, demands that God come so he can make his point. So that's really the only building I see in Job. Job never really changes his point. I'm innocent. I don't deserve this. Bob, the saying that Job is not as blameless, that's the easy, that's what we all want to do, right? But, he can't be that innocent, right? But you have to understand that the Bible says he is. The book of Job says, blameless, upright man who fears God shuns evil. And so I mean, blameless is a word for, I mean, it's perfect. We're uncomfortable with perfect. We're uncomfortable with that word. And I know that we want to talk about, well, he's only human and he can't possibly be perfect. The Bible is trying to make absolutely clear, so we will not understand. No way can you connect Job's behavior to this. Job is, from a legal standpoint, exactly correct in saying, I am innocent and blameless. That basically is, don't think of it in terms of a confession of character. Think of it in terms of this is a legal honor shame society. And that's the point he's trying to make, that I do not deserve this. And the Bible backs him up on that. Yeah. So be careful to not try to say, that's what I've seen people do, is that even we get on the side of the friends, right? God doesn't pervert justice. And Job says he's innocent, and we know human beings can't possibly be innocent. So actually, he's probably getting what he deserves. I know that's not what you're saying, but it's so easy to slide into that. It's just so easy to slide into that. Yeah, think of it from a legal perspective. I have to get to worst pastoral care in the Bible. Zophar the Naamathite. I know the friends have not been great up to now, Cindy. I will confess that. Zophar is the worst in my mind. So this is his argument after Job has done. You might get the mic ready. Should a multitude of words go unanswered? Should one full of talk be vindicated? Should your babble put others to silence? And when you mock, shall no one shame you? You say, my conduct is pure and I'm clean in God's sight. This is actually Bob's point that I think Bob just made. But oh, that God would speak and open his lips to you, and that he would tell you the secrets of wisdom. For wisdom is many-sided. Know then, God exacts of you less than your guilt deserves. So far's point is, you're lucky to only be suffering this much, because goodness knows. Luxury. Yeah, exactly. Luxury. Oh, I've dreamed of having all of my wealth taken away. No, it is that, to me, I don't know anyone who does worse pastoral care than this, right? That this is the person who stands.
Well, at least it's not this bad.
Exactly. It's like, I've just been diagnosed with breast cancer. Really? My friend was diagnosed stage 4. It was already metastasized. So really, you're lucky. It's like, thanks. Yeah, that really helps a lot. So yeah. So I told you this is the worst. Can you find out the deep things of God? Can you find out the limit of the Almighty? Of course not. We actually would agree with Zophar in this point. It makes it really awkward when they make good points like this. It's higher than heaven. What can you do? Deeper Sheol. What can you know? Its measures longer than the earth, broader than the sea. If he passes through and imprisons and assembles for judgment, who can hinder him? For he knows those who are worthless. He sees iniquity. Will he not consider it? If you direct your heart rightly, you will stretch out your hands toward him. If iniquity is in your hand, put it far away. Do not let wickedness reside in your tents. Surely then, you will lift your face up without blemish. You'll be secure, will not fear. You'll forget your misery. You'll remember it as waters have passed away. And your life will be brighter than the noonday. Its darkness will be like the morning. And you'll have confidence because there's hope, and protected to take your rest in safety. This to me, Job's response to this friend is my favorite, honestly. Because what Job says, this is the eyes of the wicked will fail. All of them is lost to them. Their hope will breathe their last. Job's response is my favorite. Job says, no doubt you're the people, and wisdom will die with you. Like, boy, you guys, you are the top of wisdom. But I have understanding as well as you do. I'm not inferior to you. Yeah, I know the arguments. I just made them a second ago. I get it. Who does not know such things as these? Everybody knows God is big. Everybody knows God is just. Everybody knows if you repent, God will forgive you. Everybody knows this. Not an idiot. Nothing worse than being thought of as stupid by your friends. Am I right? Maybe that's just me. I'm a laughingstock to my friends. I, who called upon God and he answered me, a just and blameless man, I am a laughingstock. Those at ease have contempt for misfortune, but it's ready for those whose feet are unstable. I love this. Ask the animals. They'll teach you. The birds of the air, they'll tell you. Ask the plants of the earth, they'll teach you. The fish of the sea will declare to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of God has done this? The birds know what you're talking about. It's so great. Is his hand in the life of every living thing and the breath of every human being? And then he moves on down. With God, our wisdom, and this is a confession. This is one of those times where this one doesn't seem to be used as a lever to make the argument later on. This one seems to be a moment of hope. This seems to be a moment of trust, at least, in who God is. I won't go push that too far. With God, our wisdom and strength, he has counsel and understanding. If he tears down, no one can rebuild. If he shuts someone in, no one can open up. If he withholds the waters, they dry up. If he sends them out, they overwhelm the land. This is what I'm talking about. Nothing happens without God. What's that? With him, with God, our strength and wisdom, the deceived and the deceiver are his. He leads counselors away stripped. He looses the sash of kings, binds the waistcloth of their loins, leads priests away stripped, overthrows the mighty, deprives the speech those who are trusted, takes away the discernment of the elders, pours contempt on princes, loose the belt of the strong, uncovers the deeps out of darkness, brings deep darkness to light, makes nations great, then destroys them, enlarges nations, leads them away, strips understanding from the leaders of the earth, makes them wander in a pathless waste. They grope in the dark without light. He makes them stagger like a drunkard. Look, my eye has seen all of this. My ear has heard and understood it. What you know, I know. I love that. I am not inferior to you. He actually repeats that line in 2 chapters to make the point. You're not my superior here. But I would speak to the Almighty. I desire to argue my case with God. As for you, you whitewash with lies. All of you are worthless physicians. If you would only keep silent, that would be your wisdom. Hear now my reasoning. Listen to the pleading of my lips. Will you speak falsely for God and speak deceitfully for him? Will you show partiality toward him? Will you plead the case for God? Will it be well with you when he searches you out? And can you deceive him as one person deceives another? He will surely rebuke you if in secret you show partiality. I love this argument. Are you going to actually defend God without hearing both sides of the argument? I mean, that's not a fair judgment. You haven't heard the evidence. You're being a partial witness on this. You actually have to hear my side of the story because God won't let you go if you're showing partiality. We want an honest judge. And you're not being an honest judge. You're taking God's side. Will not his majesty terrify you and the dread of him fall upon you? So you can't see, you're no better than me. You're letting him intimidate you too. I do love this. Let me have silence and I will speak. Let me come on me what may. I will take the flesh in my flesh in my teeth and put my life in my hand. See, he will kill me. I have no hope, but I will defend my ways to his face. I'm dead, but I'm going to make my point. I'm innocent. I would just like to take a moment to remember the patience of Job that is talked about in James. What a patient man Job was. Yes, to die, but defend myself to God's face. This will be my salvation, that the godless shall not come before me. Listen carefully to my words, and let my declaration be in your ears. I have indeed prepared my case. I know that I shall be vindicated. Who is there that will contend with me? For then I would be silent and die. If someone could prove me wrong, I would be silent and die. No one's proving me wrong. So I'm going to be loud and die. No, he's not killing. He's going to be loud, and then God will kill him. That is what's planned. I love this. I want 2 things. Only grant 2 things to me, then I will not hide myself from your face. He's speaking to God now. So I guess this is kind of a prayer. Withdraw your hand far from me, and do not let dread of you terrify me. Stop the suffering, and give me the strength to make my case. That's all I want. Then call, and I will answer. Or let me speak, and you reply to me. How many are my iniquities and my sins? Make me know my transgression and my sin. Why do you hide your face and count me as your enemy? That's, by the way, Job's name, Ayov. Count me as your enemy, Job. It's a pun on his own name. Will you frighten a wind-blown leaf and pursue dry chaff? Because that's all I am right now. For you write bitter things against me, make me reap the iniquities of my youth. So this is an interesting one. Apparently, Bob, in his younger days, he wasn't as good. But now, he's blameless. You put my feet in the stocks, watch all my paths. You set a bound to the soles of my feet. One wastes away like a rotten thing, like a garment that is moth-eaten. Why are you picking on me? I'm nothing. I'm nothing. But I'm going to make my point.